Okay, welcome back to the fifth in the series of rebuilding this man TGE Volkswagen Crafter van. So I've got the inner wing painted, that's all tried. I've started doing the subframe, but that's not quite finished yet. I've had to move some of the wiring in order to do that because some of it went underneath. So I've had to move the wiring back, so I'm going to start the rebuild now. I want to try and get it watertight tonight because it's due to rain. So finished off the inner wing with the aluminium foil tape. That's basically factory, that's the same as it is that side. And that's sealed up all the holes. We've wax oiled all the panels where two panels meet. Sprayed wax oil in there and then heated it up so it runs into all the joints or in the gaps. So that should be all watertight now, and it shouldn't really rust anywhere. That's all good. I've got this foam piece in ready for the scuttle panel to go over. So I'll put the scuttle panel in, put the front panel back on, and then put the bonnet back on. And then at least it's watertight tonight. Well, at least as watertight as the factory is. Put you on time lapse for this and start moving along with getting it rebuilt. During the accident, the bonnet release cable got mashed up as well in the corner of the where it was bumped. So obviously that's, even if it works now, it's going to rust over time and probably end up snapping. So I've just got the new one in now from the dealers. Set about changing them over. So I've taped the two ends together here just to pull the new one through. And on the inside of the van, the handles down here. So to get to this handle, there's three pieces of trim. This first one needs to come off is this one up here. This has got clips at the top and two at the side. So basically that needs to come out to the bottom and then down. Then the next one was alongside the glove box. So to get this off, basically it needs to come this way towards the back of the van. But there's two screws, one there and one at the bottom. So once those screws are out, you can then pull this trim off. Once that one's out the way, you can then get to this one. And this piece basically is clipped in on the side, so a clip there and a clip there, so that needs to come out that way. And then at the top here is where it clips onto this white trim at the top. So you can pull that out and then push the other one away from you, and then that should release it from the top. And then everywhere else is just trim clipped in there. And the handle slides, pull the handle out and it slides through the hole in the trim. So the next job then, just try and pull this cable through, reattach the new one, and then reattach the grommet on the bulkhead. Okay, so that's the bonnet and the wing back on. The scuttle panel is in, so it should, in theory, all be sealed up tonight. I'll stick a tarpaulin over the engine anyway, just to give it a bit more protection. But it's getting late now, so I'm going to call it a night and come back next time. So next job then will be to finish off the subframe, get the suspension on, get it rolling again, and then continue building the front end. I'll have to take that front panel back out and the radiator support panel, build that up, put the radiators in, and once the radiator's in, I should be able to start it again once it's all wired up. To be honest, it shouldn't take very long to put back together, but it's just taking time. I'll see you soon. It's going to be a quick video on the loom repair for this MAN TGE. Obviously, it's fairly straightforward. As far as I can see, there's 4 damaged looms, 4 damaged parts to the loom. The first one is this grey plug here, which is this loom here. Basically, it just got pinched in the accident and tore it. That's just going to be straightforward. It's going to be a case of just peeling this back slightly, connecting up all these wires. What's on here is airbag sensor, and I think the plug for header tank and temperature sensor, bits and pieces like that, nothing major. So I'm assuming that because the loom got torn, this is probably why the airbags didn't go off on the car, which is kind of ironic. The plug is damaged, but there's no locking tab on here anymore. But because there's a gap top and bottom, should be able to just put a cable tie through that and that'll hold it tight. It's sealed anyway, so basically we'll be able to do that one on the bench. So the next one is this water pump. Auxiliary water pump has connections here, and this is the plug for that, and it just got torn out. So again, this obviously needs replacing. The pump needs replacing itself, but the wiring on the back of the plug got damaged quite badly. So I did actually order a brand new plug for that. That came from MAN. It's not exactly the same because this one had a locking tab on, whereas this one's just got one of these push tabs, but it does fit. The issue I have is there's no pins or anything with it, and because that wire is so damaged, ideally could have done with the pins and could have replaced the wires or just plugged it back on. But what I did do when I ordered the pump is I bought a second-hand pump from eBay, and when I looked, I did actually look for one off a crafter, and this one came with the plug and the wires intact. So what I'll just do is actually solder these wires on and heat shrink them, and that'll be a better solution rather than trying to fit the new plug supplied by MAN. So that's that one. This loom here is the bumper loom. That's this one here. That does I think the radar sensor at the front and the parking sensors. Now mine didn't come with parking sensors. That's my plug for my loom. So that piece there is the radar sensor, and this must be for the, sorry, not very good position in this camera. This must be for the parking sensors, which mine hasn't got, but this is replacement loom. This part is all the same, and the plugs into mine, so that's already been replaced, and I don't need to do anything with that one. So the next thing will be just to sort these wires out. So cut this plug off, solder on the new one, repair that loom on the bench, and then the only other little thing then is down here somewhere is this plug but this actually, the connection's fine. The actual locking tab is just broken off it. That's for the temperature sensor on the pipe. It still works, it still fits in there fine. Might be able to replace that. I think I've got a replacement one somewhere. If not, I'll just plug that in and again cable tie it into position so it doesn't come out. The seal and everything's intact anyway, so it should be okay. So I'll get this done. I'm not going to show you my soldering, it's not great. And there's plenty of videos on YouTube regarding soldering. So I'll have a quick look at this and get this done. Okay, so I thought I'd bring you back in for a quick look at this first one I'm doing. This is the auxiliary water pump plug. So because these lengths of wire I'm trying to solder onto here are quite short, it's quite awkward. But it actually worked out that it's quite easy to pull them out of this plug. So you move this locking tab across, that's how it should be. But just pull it out, put your thumbnail under there and pull it across, and then push in onto the actual locking tab on the wire, and then the whole thing just pulls out. It's got these little silicone grommets on it, so this where it's waterproof, but it gives you much more room to actually solder and mess about if need be. It just makes life a lot easier. This earth one I'm probably going to be putting a crimp-on connection because it won't solder nicely. It's a bit dirty, it looks a bit burnt. It's probably where it's been running after the accident. It's probably earthed out slightly. Hopefully it hasn't caused any damage, but time will tell on that one. But the wire itself looks okay, it's just a bit black on the edge here, but because of that the solder's not taken to it very well. So we'll probably put a crimp connector. I'll pull this one out now, put a crimp connector on it, put this one back in, and then heat shrink over it, all of it, just to keep it nice and tidy. So that's the first one nearly done. Okay, and that's the repair done. So in the end I took all the wires out, joined them up. The earth wire, because it was dirty, I did end up putting a crimp connector on it. Cut them all back. It was a heat shrink crimp connector, so all the individual wires are heat shrinked and then they're heat shrink together as well, so it should all be sealed up fairly good, at least as good as it was from factory. And then just put this locking tab back in, and yeah, it's all good. So the next one then will be to do the grey one on the bench, and that one probably doesn't need to be done straight away. I can do that in a second. This little one at the back here, I'm just going to have a quick look at that, but probably end up just cable tying it on because it does clip together quite nicely and tightly. And like I said, the silicone seal is still inside it, so that'll be okay. And the rest of it's fairly straightforward, so not too bad now. That was the main one to just get done. Now that's done, I can just put the water pump back on and carry on building the front end. just found out now. The anti-roll bar drop links are different top to bottom. So the bottom actually has a slight shoulder that sits into the anti-roll bar, and the bolt bolts up. The bolt is a flange bolt. Sorry, the nut is a flange nut with no washer. On the top has this big flat washer, and the nut has a captive washer on it as well. Flange nut again, but with a captive washer as well. So this is the top, and this is the bottom. Didn't actually realise they were different until I went to go and fit it and put the nut on, and it didn't actually see all the way. So that's how I found that out. So carry on for a bit. Okay, so this is pretty much the suspension back together now. The shock's in, anti-roll bar's done, all the bolts are done up. Nothing is completely tight yet. It's all tight, but not super tight. The actual bolts on the control arms are loose, so I'm going to tighten those up once it's back on the floor, because you don't want to be stressing the bushes. So put it back on the floor, but let it on its own weight and let it settle, and then tighten those bolts up, and that way the bushes inside the arm won't be twisted. It should last a bit longer. So that's pretty much it for the suspension. The wheels, in theory it can go back on its wheels now, but we'll leave it up in the air for a minute because I want to need access to the front anyway to get the bits and pieces in. So the next job now will be to start rebuilding this front end properly and carry on with the wiring now. The reason I want to get this strut on is because obviously these nuts in here will be hidden by all these electrics and bits and pieces that are going to be in here. So that'll be the next job, to start putting these putting the electrics together, get everything started where it should be, filters and bits and pieces. Once that's done, the front end can go back on then. So let's see.